How are we doing, Promise of Victory? I am so glad you guys are tuning in right now. We're going to wait just a couple minutes just to see if a few other people are coming, are going to hop on, are ready to rock and roll with us. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask a few questions, and you can respond with an emoji. You can give thumbs up, thumbs down. That's backwards. Thumbs up, thumbs down. You can give a heart. You can give... You can make fun, pick the funny faces, either way. Just want to ask a few questions for here in a minute. Who already has their Christmas? Keep in mind, at the time of this filming, it is November 8th. Who already has their Christmas decorations up? I don't. Hands are down. Maybe put the Christmas tree emoji, right? If you've already started, like, what if you started? They're not up, but you've started. They're not all ready. It's not like Christmas Wonderland in your house yet, but you've started. Throw the Christmas tree up right now. Throw it up right now. Thumbs up, thumbs down on this next one, just so we see the difference. Thumbs up. I'm not saying one is worse than the other, but give me a thumbs up for you use a real tree. Thumbs down if you use a fake tree. If you use an artificial tree. Bonus points. Points are a lot like the old the show. It still airs, but it's not what it was. But whose line is it anyway, right? Points really don't matter. But extra points if it's a pre-lit Christmas tree. Thumbs up if you use a real tree. Thumbs down if you use a fake tree. I use a fake tree, so I am thumbs down. Thumbs down. I'm also married to a woman who sees a good deal on Christmas trees. So we have several Christmas trees, right? So I'd have like 5 thumbs downs. 5 thumb down. Thumbs down? Thumb downs. I'd have 5 emojis of a thumbs down. There we go. And not to confuse you with a thumb up. I was just like, yeah. All right, one more question. By show of happy face or sad face? Happy face? Sad face. How do people feel about Thanksgiving, the whole concept of Thanksgiving being skipped? People jump from Halloween as soon as Halloween's over. A lot of people just jump straight to Christmas. They're like, yeah! And there's a day of turkey and football in between. And maybe some shopping. If you're like, that's cool, man, let's just jump straight into Christmas. Hit us with the big, ah. And if you're like, that's not fair to Thanksgiving, bro. That's not fair, man. Give me the, All right, I feel like we've talked holidays enough. For those of you that struggle, like you're ADD like me, and you just wait till last minute, you procrastinate, right? Get your Christmas shopping started, okay? Save yourself a headache in December and get it started, okay? Anyway, all right, now we got a few announcements for you. The first announcements we want to hit is the live nativity. We are doing a live nativity here at the church, December 10th. We would love to have candy to give out, so if you would like to donate some candy, please bring that to the church. If you would like to volunteer for anything, whether you want to be an angel, hallelujah. Actually, I don't think you'll be singing. But if you want to help with parking, if you want to help whatever, in any way, shape, or form, if you want to watch an animal, yes, we'll have animals. It is a live nativity. Please volunteer. Please volunteer. Scan the QR code and volunteer for that. Also with the live nativity will be in the Weirton Christmas Parade. If you like parades, and you like live nativities, and you like our church, that is a triple whammy. You should go check them out, support them, help them with the Weirton Christmas Parade on November 26th. That is all about the live nativity. Another thing coming up, and this one is the last announcement, Christmas at the movies. Listen, we did it. We were blessed enough to do it last year, and we're lucky enough that we get to do it this year too. I'm telling you, this whole place, the atmosphere, it's magical. There's no other word to use it, and I know cheesy, right? It's magical. It is. This place is transformed. It is an experience like none other. So listen, this is a great opportunity for you to ask your friends to come here, because this is not church. This is not normal church. This is a very unique experience, and you have to show up. You have to show up. These we don't have the privilege of being able to throw them on to live stream because of certain reasons, because we're using, movies that we didn't make. So you have to be here. You need to be here for November 27th. December, let me pull it up here. Here we go. November 27th is when it starts. December 4th, December 11th, December 18th. December 4th, 11th, 18th, kicking off, though, on November 27th, the first Sunday after Thanksgiving. Listen, Christmas at the movies, it is an awesome, awesome experience. You're going to want to be here. And this is a fantastic time to invite somebody because this is church done just a little different. They can say, oh, I've been to church. No, this is different, man. You should come check it out. I'm telling you, you'll have fun. You'll have fun. I promise. I promise. And this is a great way for us to reach out to the community, and it's an awesome way to present the gospel. And I'm glad that we are at a church that's going to creatively present the gospel. And it's exciting, super exciting. And we got some surprises in store that we didn't have last year. So I'm telling you, it's going to be a blast. All right, I think everyone's had time to hop on now. Or you fast forwarded through all this and you're here and you're watching this at a future time. But we're going to pray and we're going to get into it. Dear Heavenly Father, pray that you touch right now, this moment, God. And right now is relative to us. You know exactly who's watching this, when they're watching this. You know the exact moment, what they're going through in their life when they're watching what is about to be said. So God, this has nothing to do with Israel. This is a divine thing that you've given us. So God, I pray that you'll help us all get at least one thing out of this. God, help us apply this to our life. God, I thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of different people, but we're going to be kicking off with King David. Actually, not necessarily King David. We're talking about David as in the shepherd, the future king of Israel. Yeah, that David. We're going to be talking about something that, we're not talking about something he did. Anytime you hear a church talk about David, it's either one of the good things he did or it's one of the mess-ups he had. And somewhere in between. But we're not talking about anything that he did specifically. We're going to talk about how he felt. That's right, we're talking about emotions. Listen, we are human. We were created with emotions on purpose. As a matter of fact, God has emotions, and we were made in his image. It's perfectly normal for us to have all the emotions, and all the emotions we've ever felt, Jesus experienced all those emotions. He experienced them. And because he was also 100% human, he showed us you can make it out a saint and not a sinner dealing with all these human problems and human emotions, okay? Anyway, we know David experienced like all the emotions possible. David went through the ringer, okay? He's been through the highs, the lows, the ins, the outs. He's been through it all. And we know this because he wrote a lot down. Another fun fact about David, he was a musician and a poet. So essentially, David was a hippie who played stringed instruments. It's a free way to look at that. You're welcome. Anyway, the book of Psalms is a lot of poetry. Some of it is prophecy, some of it is singing praises to God, and a lot of them, not all of them, were written by David. To put it simply, I'm rounding one way or the other, half of Psalms, there's a lot of them, half of the Psalms were written by David. And the ones he wrote, they were written throughout the duration of his life. So we could be reading one from young David to old David, to shepherd, harp-playing, hippie David, right? To King David. To David that just did something fantastic and is riding on cloud 9, or to David who just messed up huge. From single to married to dad David, we're going to be looking at one of his Psalms at some point during his life. Again, this specific psalm was written by David. Yes, the David that killed Goliath, the same David that united Israel under one banner, one nation, and the same David that had some huge mess-ups. Some experts say this psalm was written when King Saul was trying to kill David before David was king. Some say the psalm was written when David's son Absalom was trying to kill David much later in life. Some say that this is simply David going through one of the pits of life. Either way, we can all agree David was going through some stuff. He's going through the fields, man. Whether he was hiding in a cave, boarded up in a room, or out in isolation in the woods, or even feeling lost and alone in the midst of a sea of people. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced that. I have, where you could be surrounded by people, but you still feel like you're alone, all alone, even though you're surrounded by friends. It's very possible. So wherever David was, however the experience was like physically happening, we just know David was going through it. He was going through it, man. Let's read the short psalm here and listen to what he's saying. Listen to what David's saying. Try to understand the emotions behind the word. Yes, it's poetry. Yes, it's an English translated Hebrew poetry, okay, from long ago through several translations. But just try to understand to the best of our ability here. We need to try to understand the emotions behind what he's saying. How much longer, Lord, will you forget about me? Will it be forever? How long will you hide? How long must I be confused and miserable all day? How long will my enemies keep beating me down? Please listen, Lord God, and answer my prayers. Make my eyes sparkle again, or else I will fall into the sleep of death. My enemies will say, now we've won. They will be greatly pleased when I am defeated. And then there's a shift here. David, and he always caps it off, I guess. I trust your love, and I feel like celebrating because you rescued me. You have been good to me, Lord, and I will sing about you. Again, I'm going to quickly point it out again. This is one of the more famous psalms where he talks like this, but there are many more instances when we can mention that. And it's not just David who says stuff like this. Listen, we can easily see this as a bad thing. We can see this as a bad thing. This psalm we can see as a bad thing. But when we read throughout David's life, God was there with him in the good times and the bad. David would later write about that. There's tons of psalms about it, guys. David always gives praises to God no matter how rough he has it. This shows us, although it's not fun, although we may have put ourselves in that mess, that it's okay. Once we know whether we've messed up or whether we're in a hot mess, that we didn't mean to do it. It's something that just stumbled upon us because life happens. It's okay. We'll be all right as long as we give it to God. That's something we can easily learn from David. Again, David, a hot mess, he was still the apple of God's eye. So it's okay. We are only human. And know this, experiencing negative thoughts, it's not a sin. So this shows us there may be times in our lives where we don't hear from God. There will be times when we feel like God goes radio silent, meaning no communications come from someone, somewhere, that there's normally communication. Listen again to what David said. How much longer, Lord, will you forget about me? Will it be forever? How long will you hide? How long must I be confused and miserable? How long will my enemies keep beating me down? Most of us, if not all of us, are going to feel, if we haven't already, some sort of radio silence from God at some point in our life. The question is, what do we do when that happens? One thing we need to do is to do the last thing God told us to do. Galatians 6 says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. The last thing God told you to do, however big it is, however small it is. The last thing you felt like God told you to do that. Do that thing. Go on that journey, that whatever God told you to do, wherever he told you to go, whatever you feel like you're supposed to be doing, do that. Maybe God is waiting for us to finish something that we haven't finished. Maybe when we finish that, God will take us to the next thing. Okay, you're done. Here's the next thing, man. Here's the next thing. A lot of times we're waiting for the next assignment and we haven't completed the first one, the one that we have already that he's given us. We haven't finished it. We haven't completed it. And we're like, what's next? Well, that's next. You still need to do that, man. Come on, Iz. Think it through, buddy. God doesn't really talk to me like that. That's me paraphrasing. So sometimes we have unfinished business. Another thing we can do is remember the past. Philippians 1 says, am I certain and I am certain, this is Paul, and I am certain that God, who began a good work within you, will continue his work until it is fully finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns. All throughout the Old Testament, the Israelites built altar after altar after altar when God did something big for them. And then they named it after something that God did for them, and that was the name of the altar. Like, God shows up in dark places. That's like what the name meant. These altars sort of acted like, yes, they were altars that you prayed, that they would give sacrifices to God. Yes, but they also acted as memorials. So when someone would later come across these altars, they would remember what God did for his people. Reminding ourselves of what God has done, how far God has brought us, will keep our hope, our faith alive in our hearts. So when not feeling like we hear from God, praise him for who he is and praise him for what he's done. Remind yourself who God is and what he can do. Another thing we need to be doing is preparing for the future. Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. We make our own plans, but the Lord decides where we will go. Hebrews says we must hold tight to the hope we say is ours. After all, God can be trusted to keep his promise. Listen, God gave us a brain. Some of us use it more than others. Some of us need to use it more. But God gave us all a brain, and we need to use our brains. Be wise, make good decisions, because when we're not hearing from God, it's on us to take steps forward in life. Time doesn't stop because we're not hearing from God. That doesn't mean life slows down. It does not stop, and neither can we. While holding on to the hope, while possibly completing something God gave us already, while remembering who God is and what he can do, what he's done, we need to get ourselves ready. Because if we get something that we're not ready for, I'm going to word it like this. Ezra, he likes to go pull his cubby out of where his snackies. That's what I call them. That's right, snackies. He pulls the snackies out, right? He'll pick up the whole thing. So if it's like gummies, if it's like fruit gummies, right? He'll bring us the whole box, not a pouch. He'll bring us the whole box, and he's like, "Man, and he's just like, hey, I want this." I'm not sure he knows what it is, but not everything. He knows what some of them are, but he wants that. And one thing we get that he loves, Elmo's on the front. It's a blue bag. They're peanut butter. I call them puffs. Peanut butter puffs. Not like that's just what I call them. I don't know what they're actually called. They're little puffs shaped like tater tots, but smaller than tater tots, that are just real light, crunch, like real light. You can kind of crunch to them. They're not quite a chip. They're puffs. They're puffs. They're peanut butter puffs. Right? Not the cereal. Peanut butter puffs. If I open that bag, he wants the whole bag. He wants to stick his hand elbow deep in that bag and just pull everything he can hold out. If I let him take the bag, he would take the bag. What's going to happen, though, if I let him take the whole bag? If I give him a whole canister of another snack, what's going to happen if I don't give it to him one or two at a time? It's going to end up all over the floor. He's going to dump it out because he is not ready yet as an 18-month-old. That's sad. He's already 18 months. He's not ready yet as an 18-month-old to carry that much at once. If we get something we're not ready for, we're likely to fail, and we're likely to make a big mess. Another question I want to ask. Have you ever been without cell signal before? Listen, this is all one big thought here. Okay, hang with me. It's going to sound like I'm scatterbrained, but hang with me. Have you ever been without cell signal before? As in absolutely nothing. I don't mean you go to like somewhere and there's just sporadic service. I mean no cell service, no Wi-Fi, no nothing. Is it a little bit refreshing? If you find that a little bit refreshing, hit the thumbs up emoji. If you find like, oh man, my phone, I don't have to worry about it. I'm talking just a short time. If you find that refreshing, thumbs up. I would give a thumbs up. Depending on when. I don't want to be hit with it. I want to know it's coming. But I do find it refreshing. Or do you hate it? If you hate it, thumbs down. I know which one my wife will put. Not the one I would put. If you hate it, thumbs down. If you like it, thumbs up. Hey, to each their own, right? A few friends and myself, we go camping every year. We go so far out in the woods in West Virginia that we have nothing on our phones for about 30 minutes into a town. Then we get signal again, and then we hit the back road to the Williams River Road out in the middle of nowhere off of 19 in southern West Virginia. And we lose service again for like 30 minutes. And I mean nothing. I mean, there's no service, period. Nothing. There's not like sporadic if you hold it to the right degree and you're touching the metal on your car and your other foot's on a tree. Like, no, nothing, okay? We make sure to drive out to town every day so we can, that we are camping. And, you know, if we need more water, if we need like, because you know how camping trips are, especially with the fellas, you know, we always forget something. One year my cousin was like, let's just catch our food. They had just restocked the river with trout, and he's like, let's catch our food. So we went out every day buying food. That's how that went down. One salmon for about 8 full-grown, some bigger boys. Fish was good, but not enough to feed us the whole weekend. So we had to go out and we had to go up to town. Another reason we do it, and this is probably the main reason, we do it so we can call back home. And we've been doing this camping trip so long, a lot of us have done it when we were dating our wives. So it's a fun tradition we get to do. As we're riding in the town together, you know, you carpool, no sense everybody driving their own vehicle, you hear a collective ding, 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 ding. Everyone's phone starts going off because all the stuff's coming through. That's all of our phones going off at once. And listen, I love Charity. She's the love of my life. Ezra is the love of my life. But it is nice to unplug and go off grid for a short period of time. Now, again, not everybody wants to go off grid. I would love if they went off grid with me, okay? That wouldn't even make it better. Oh, Charity, please go camping with me one time. Now that I've said that in front of everybody, yeah, you should go camping with me. Puppy dog eyes. It is nice to unplug, go off grid for a very short time. Because these don't work, we don't even look at our phones. We don't. We grab them when we get to the car. Somebody might play music at some point during one of the days. But we're not looking for updates on social media. There's nothing. We get nothing. It's kind of cool. As much as I enjoy that yearly camping tradition, as fun as that may sound to everyone else to do something like that, I'm going to go one step further. There is a town in West Virginia called Green Bank. It's in what is called the National Radio Quiet Zone. You can Google it, by the way. Just type in National Radio Quiet Zone. What makes this town so unique is the giant satellite that's there. It was a radio telescope for the National Science Foundation. It's considered to be one of the world's largest moving structures. 16 wheels carrying 17 million pounds on a steel track, allowing it to rotate to pinpoint planets, stars, asteroids, any other astronomical phenomenon throughout the entire universe. In the town of Green Bank, there is no Wi-Fi, no cell service, no cable television, no microwaves. None of these things are allowed within a 10-mile radius of that satellite. This is to create an area that will allow the Green Bank telescope to operate with little to no interference. Now, who thinks they can live in a town like that? Now that I have, obviously, a lot of you listening have. I grew up in an era where I didn't have this. Okay, and some of you grew up. Some of you might not use some of that stuff now. One of the kids went, "Well, you can watch Netflix." No, there's no Wi-Fi. You're gonna rock some old DVDs, maybe. Okay. Now that I've experienced it, it would be a very difficult transition for me to live with no signal. But there's a school there. There's a community there. A town where you can't send a quick text to meet somebody. You just make plans in person, and if they don't show up, they're not showing up. You can't just, hey, where are you? Oh, I'm 10 minutes out. Hey, I'm not going to be able to come. No, you just go. Kind of like the 1980s, 1990s, right, before phones. Again, I know a lot of you have lived that way, but now that I've lived this way, it'd be hard for me. It'd be a hard transition for me. It's a place where you have to eat either cold food or use an oven because there's no microwave. On top of all this, by the way, they patrol the area with their own vehicles looking for restricted electromagnetic signals. They police their roads to make sure no one is doing something to cause interference with the satellite. At one point, when you approach the telescope, only vehicles using diesel fuel can enter through specific areas. You can't go on that anymore unless your vehicle is diesel fuel. They take this serious. And because they do, the entire town of Green Bank and a lot of the surrounding areas, it's not just there, they're radio silent. Except for, of course, a few actual radio stations, including, you ready? Bing, ding, 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 bing, bing, bing. Pretend it's a banjo and I can play it. Allegheny Mountain Radio. Think about it. The entire community doesn't have to worry about the newest phone, the newest tech. They don't have to worry about social media drama. What? They don't have to worry about snarky, passive-aggressive texts. They don't have to play that childish game. This is something, if you're, listen, somebody doesn't know that this is a thing yet, and brace yourself, it's ridiculous. They don't have to play that childish game where you don't respond to somebody for a whole day because they left you unread for an hour. I know they saw it and they didn't answer me, so the next time they text me back, I'm going to wait a whole day. Because God forbid somebody be busy and not be able to respond immediately, right? Anyway, that game doesn't exist. They have to use a landline phone. They have broadband internet that takes minutes to download a YouTube video. Cyberbullying is essentially non-existent. You don't have to worry about people texting and driving. If I were to take a random stab at it, though, I'd say the people living in this town, Green Bank, communicate so much better. I bet you families living in this town communicate so much better than we do. Distraction-free. Don't get me wrong, this would be a very tough transition. I mean, all of us, if we had to, we'd do it. I mean, we'd have to. You have to adapt. But it'd be hard for me to go back from no signal. It would be difficult. I can do it one camping trip at a time. Listen to this. The Green Bank satellite is so powerful, it could detect your phone on Saturn while your phone was in airplane mode. But it wouldn't be able to do that if our phones were on with the signals that they could have right next to it interfering with it. Isn't that something? A satellite with all that power could be ineffective with other weaker signals near it drowning it out. If we're going through a season of radio silence, is it possible that God isn't being quiet? God, I'm not hearing you. I can't hear from you, God. Maybe it's not God being quiet. Maybe our radio silence is self-inflicted. Maybe we are hearing so much from all the other sources, all the other signals, that just like the issues that satellite could have, we're getting too much from the outside. Too much drama. Oh, what are we going to do about this? Oh man, we're going to panic about the car. The Christmas is coming up. Oh, what are we going to do? We're getting too much outside signals. We're getting all this interference sometimes. Luke 5 says, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Even Jesus had to get away from the hustle. Jesus, by the way, who is also God, had to get away from all the other things, all the other people, to spend time with God. I want you to think about that for a second. Jesus had to go spend time with God. Jesus is 100% God, 100% man. He had to spend time with God. Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. If Jesus needed to spend time with God, what makes us think we don't? 1 Peter 5:8, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. It says, be alert. That means to tune in, to zone in, to focus, right? We can't do that if we're distracted by all the other things in life. This says the enemy, we're going to say is also the devil, is like a lion. Listen, lions are not the fastest animals. They actually often get outrun by gazelle. They're not the quickest animals. When you zig, when the lion zigs, well, man, the prey zagged, right? But lions are patient. Lions are opportunistic. They're brilliant hunters. They strike when they know they have a high chance at success. So when we get distracted, when we get separated from the pack, when drama hits home, I'm going to talk to all of them, my friends, blah, 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 blah. When all the other things are distracting us, and we storm out and we shut the world off, that's when the enemy attacks. That's when the enemy pounces. Be alert and of sober mind. Get rid of all the other signals. Get rid of the signals that are dragging you down. Get rid of the signals that are taking up too much of your time. I'm not saying cut people out of your life. I'm not saying that. That's up to you. That's up for you to decide what those other signals are. I'm not saying you got to stop doing certain hobbies. But maybe you should stop watching certain shows. Maybe you should stop listening to certain, you know what, something that's huge, especially because of COVID? Podcasts. Maybe you should shut off a podcast and instead pray. I don't know what it looks like for you, but during seasons of radio silence, maybe we should start turning off the other signals. Turn them off for a minute. We can turn them. We can flick the signals back on. We can get back into the news. We can get back into election season. We can get back into all this other stuff. But maybe we should turn them off if we're feeling like we're not hearing from God, because maybe we're drowning it out. Romans 12, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. We should do our best to not worry about what this world does, but focus on letting God transform us. Yes, we are in this world, but not of this world. That can't happen if we are derailed. That can't happen if we are too bogged down by the other signals. And when we let God transform us, God transforms our minds. We can more easily see if someone else was sent by God, if it's going to hinder us or be another distraction, if it's a signal that's drowning out God, or if it's something that is going to enhance our life. Maybe, just maybe, if we're in a season of radio silence, we're the ones that has too much going on. Too many signals, too many distractions, too many things, too much drama. When we feel like we aren't hearing from God, maybe it's because our frequencies, our focus, our signals are drowning out the voice of God. Sometimes we need to clear the airspace. Sometimes we need to eliminate the other signals coming in so that we can fully focus on God. Again, this is another one of those odd shifts here, but it's all about not hearing from God. Have you ever had to make a decision without hearing from God? You've prayed, man, God, please tell me what to do. Please tell me where to go. Please tell me how to do this. Help me, God. Nothing. You didn't hear directly from God. You didn't hear indirectly from God. No one prophesied through an altar. No one called you and said, you know what, God's put something on my mind for you. You didn't have a gut feeling. You didn't have peace about a decision. It can be a hard thing to do. To walk out in faith without having certainty. With not 1% certainty. And if anyone's going to try to say that's not how God operates, but I would beg to differ, because I've had to do it. I know I'm not the only one either. Having to step out in faith without hearing from God, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. But sometimes we have to do that. And this is very similar to what we read in the book of Esther. Before we talk about Esther, let me say that the book of Esther is unique in that it doesn't mention the name of God. So what we read in the book of Esther are people acting on behalf of God. Now, I'm not saying they didn't hear from God. What I'm saying is that it's never mentioned. God is never mentioned, and it's not mentioned that God told me this. The name of God isn't mentioned in the book of Esther. To summarize Esther, which, by the way, is a quick 10 chapters. I know 10 chapters doesn't sound like, man, that's a long read. It's 10 chapters. Trust me, Esther is quick. It's entertaining. It's dramatic. It's a fun read. And if you've never read it, trust me, read it. Trust me. To summarize Esther, the Hebrews are in exile before Esther. They were captured by the Babylonians, and the Babylonians were then conquered by the Persians. Esther is not known as a Hebrew. She knows it, but she kind of kept that hidden. Although she is a Hebrew, she's not known as a Hebrew. She hid that while the king was searching for a new queen. If you need to know why the king was searching for a new queen, that's Esther chapter 1. Esther went through a long, long, long process to become the queen. But spoiler alert, she does. Mordecai was Esther's uncle. He also held a position in the king's court. Another man in the king's court was named Haman. Haman hated Mordecai, and he wanted to kill all the Hebrews because that's just what evil people want. I don't like you, so I want anyone like you to die. Mordecai found out that Haman wanted to do this, and he told Esther, you have to stop this man. Only Esther could do it because Haman had tricked the king into signing a law saying that on a certain upcoming day, the Hebrews can be slain. You can go kill the Hebrews. Open season. A law made by the king, by the way, could never be reversed. You can't make a new law reversing that law. A law once is a law is a law. That's how the Persians were. So the Hebrews, God's people, they're in trouble. What we read, Esther is approached by Mordecai. He begs her to speak up. After finding out about this, he begs her to speak up for the Jewish people, for the Hebrews. People still don't know she's a Hebrew, by the way. The big deal is, if you approach the king without being summoned by the king of Persia, at this point in time, the most powerful kingdom on the earth. Well, at one point. I'm not a historian. If you approach the king without being summoned, you could be put to death. And she was being asked to approach the king without being summoned to take up for her people. This walk to his throne that she was being asked to do could literally be a death sentence. But, another spoiler alert, she did it anyway. As the last hope for the Hebrews, for her people. Long story short, she eventually gets the king to create another law, and that law was, it allowed the Hebrews to survive. It allowed the Hebrews to survive. That's the shortest way I can explain that. Again, you need to read Esther. It is one of the most amazing books in the Bible. From what we read, this was proposed by Mordecai, not God. God did not appear to Esther in a dream and tell her all this. Mordecai may have heard from God. It's not said. It's not said. But he approached Esther, and for all we know, after Esther was told about all this stuff, she could be, for all we know, 100% in the dark. We don't know. We don't know exactly. This is also during exile. They're not in their homeland. They're in Persia. So Esther, what she knew, she did it. What she knew was right, she did it. She did it with faith and fear. And again, those two things can often go together. She did what she knew to be the right thing to do. She did it not knowing if she'd make it out alive. My favorite verse from Esther, and one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible, Mordecai is talking to Esther and pleading with her in Esther 4:14. For if you remain, this is Mordecai talking to Esther, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And who knows that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. 6 powerful words. For such a time as this. There may be a time we don't hear from God, but life is moving forward anyway. There may be a time that we have to step out in faith, because who knows, maybe you're in that position for such a time as this. Maybe this situation was put on you by God himself for such a time as this. When we know what's right, we know. Yes, we should absolutely pray, but maybe we won't directly hear about it from God. Maybe we'll have to make our own decision in a specific time frame in which God is being radio silent. But that doesn't mean that it's not for such a time as this. The last thing I want to quickly mention, again, thank you for hanging with me. We're going to land this plane here. I've been all over the Bible timeline. The last thing I want to quickly mention in the Bible, at the end of Malachi, the last book in the Old Testament, and before the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, there was what is called the 400 years of silence. A lot happened during that time. The Roman Empire arrives. We can read historic accounts of what happened with the Maccabees and the Maccabean revolt. But there is no record of a prophet talking on behalf of God. God was silent for 400 years, the 400 years of silence. That is generations, plural, generations that didn't hear from God. So, why did God do that? Listen, God never just fulfills one purpose. I found this to be true. God never fulfills just one purpose. Everything God does has a giant ripple effect. It's for multiple reasons. As a matter of fact, all the parables Jesus said, there's layers to it. This is what it means, but there's more to it. Oh, you need to dig, there's more to it. Oh, you need to dig, there's more to it. Everything God does has a giant ripple effect. But for the 400 years of silence, God was setting up for something huge. The game changer. Real quick, though, let's remember Exodus. I told you I'm all over the place. God told Abraham in the book of Exodus, Abraham being the first Hebrew, the first person of God, he left, God called him out of the Chaldeans, God, all that. Abraham is essentially the first Hebrew. God told Abraham, your descendants are going to be slaves in a foreign land. And guess for how long God told him that that's going to happen? For 400 years. At this point in Abraham's life, the Israelites, they weren't a people. As a matter of fact, Israel is why they're called the Israelites. That was later to be born. He wasn't born. The Hebrews were not a nation. They were just kind of a growing family. Another long story short, Abraham's family ended up in Egypt. You got to go down to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. You got to go down the line a little bit. Ended up in Egypt because of a famine. They stayed there. And over time, Pharaoh tricked them into being slaves. Can you guess for how long? 400 years. Then, all of a sudden, God speaks to Moses and tells him, it's time to deliver my people. We're going to do it. It's time. We're going to deliver my people. This is a big shadow of what Jesus was going to do later after 400 years of silence, by the way. Their exit, their departure, their escape from Egypt, their exodus was also their entrance into the world. The Israelites, hey, we are a people, we are a nation, and we are God's chosen people. He's going to do mighty things. Other nations knew and heard what they did in Egypt, what they did in other city-states that they passed through when they finally crossed into Canaan. And on the way too, during the 40 years in the wilderness. But they were slaves for 400 years. During those 400 years, God was setting them up for deliverance, and they didn't even know Moses was coming. During the 400 years of silence between the Old and New Testament, God was setting them up for deliverance. He was setting us up now. I mean, we're not alive at then. We're long from then. He was setting everybody from that point forward up for deliverance. And they didn't even know Jesus was coming. God went radio silent for a while, and during that time, he was setting up something big. Maybe we're in a season of radio silence. Maybe when we're in this radio silence, maybe God is setting us something. Maybe he's setting us up for something big. One of the most famous chapters in the Bible can be found in Psalms. It's one of the first things and when I was growing up in church, children's church, Sunday school, was told to memorize, and we got a little trophy for quoting it in front of the whole church, along with the book Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, the whole books of the Bible, Old and New Testament. But one of those famous books, the famous chapters in the Bible, can be found in Psalms, Psalm 23. This one was also written by what we talked about first. It was written by David. David said, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want." Ooh, that's nice. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Ooh, yeah. Come on, God. He leads me beside the still waters. Oh, I like it. I like it. He restores my soul. Oh, yeah. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Woohoo. Those are all good things. David is saying, God, you give me good things. You take me to good places. You are good. But then David goes on to say, verse 4, Psalm 23, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Wait, what? Let's stop for a second. What? God leads David, he leads us by still waters, by green pastures. He restores me. And then all of a sudden I'm walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Come on, son. What? Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I will walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but I will fear no evil, because you, God, are with me. You bring me face to face with my enemy, but I will fear no evil, because you, God, are with me. Do you think David is hearing God loud and clear when he's walking in the valley of the shadow of death, and all the times that David was being hunted to be killed by, whether it was King Saul, the king of Israel, whether it was by his own son? Do you think David was hearing God loud and clear through all the drama, all the other stuff? It'd be hard to hear God. It'd be hard to hear him in the shadows, in the darkness. I've experienced that too. I'm sure you have. It's hard to hear God during that. In the presence of those who want to see us fail. In the presence of those who hate me, hate you, hate us. It would be beyond distracting to try to hear from God. It would be radio silent. But I will fear no evil, because you, God, are with me. It is so easy to panic. I've done it. I am guilty. I'm as guilty as anyone. It is so easy to panic when we don't hear the voice of God, when we don't get that gut feeling. Well, however, God is, he can speak to you in any way, shape, or form. It's still a small voice. He can, in the Old Testament, he showed up as a thunderstorm on a mountain. He rumbled the earth. Sometimes God speaks through prophets, through people praying, through someone reaching out to you saying, hey, God wanted me to pray for you today. And God just put you in my mind. Maybe that's you, God letting you know, hey, I know you're there, man. I'm not radio silent. I'm going to give you a shout out. It's easy to panic, though, when we don't hear that. And just because we aren't hearing him, just because we aren't feeling him like we do at a camp meeting, at a conference, during revival, during when church is just popping, that doesn't mean God isn't with us. We hold on to the hope that is Jesus, the hope that we say we have. We hold on to the hope that is Jesus. We hold on to the light, to the life that is Jesus. Dear Heavenly Father, you know exactly who's going to hear this. And it is an unfortunate side effect of living a human life on this planet. There will be another time that I feel like you've gone radio silent. Maybe I need to work on what you've already given me. Maybe I didn't finish something. Maybe I need to get ready. Maybe I need to tune out some other signals. Maybe I just need to, I got to do my best to move forward. And I'm going to do the very best, make the very best decision I can possibly make. And God, all while knowing you're setting something up, setting us up for something big. God, in that same thing I just prayed, I want everybody, anyone who hears this, let them know, God, you're doing all those things. Maybe they need to work on something. Maybe they need to get ready. Maybe they need to remember the past and remember what you can do. They need to remind themselves of who you are and what you can do. Maybe they need to do the right thing. They know what the right choice is. They're just not getting that warm, fuzzy feeling sometimes we get from you. God, maybe we need to be reminded you're setting us up for something big. Something big's coming. God, I love you. And even though your radio silence, I will fear no evil, because you, God, are with me. God, I love you. Through the times that I hear you and through the radio silence. God, I thank you for being God. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to thank you all for sticking with me, sticking with us here. We would love to have you. If you've never been to our church before, we would love to have you. I'm telling you, it's fun. We are a family here. This is an amazing place. I love it. And if you're just tuning in and you've already got a place that you call home, I want to thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. We hope, and I pray that God showers blessings on blessings on blessings on everybody and their families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. We can't wait to see you in church.